When you think bicycles, you think two wheels. The clue's in the name, right? Bicycle, two wheels. However, some of the most fun and useful skills actually only involve one of these. Yes, today we're going to look at some one-wheeled skills. So here are my top 6. Right, before we dive into the video, why not give the old channel a little like and subscribe? That way you help support all the amazing free content that we constantly bring you. First up then, the humble wheelie, a great skill to learn, and essentially it is pedaling what's going along on the back wheel. So the wheelie then, it can be used from everything from showing off to your mates, popping some steves down the high street, or actually useful out on the trail like getting up over obstacles, and here is how you do it. So first up, find a nice grassy area, because if you fall off, it's not going to hurt as much as concrete or gravel. So I'd strongly recommend that. And a slight incline is really useful as well. Basically, if you're using an incline, you're going uphill, then the front is already slightly picked up above the back wheel. That's going to make it even easier that when you do pedal, which we'll get to in a moment, to pick that front end up and also keep it up there. So here's a quick fire way how to pull a wheelie then. So we're going to ride along at a fairly steady pace, going slightly up our hill there, and then we're going to pick a gear one harder than what you think you might need. If it's too easy, then when you start pedaling, you're going to spin out real quick. So go one harder, and then that way, once you do get the cadence going, you can hold it there easily. You're going to crouch into the bike. As you stamp down on that lead foot, you're going to follow through with a big, strong pedal stroke, and that is going to keep the back end up. Now, the key thing here is to cover the back brake. So many people don't do this, and you see them looping out. If you're covering the back brake, as soon as you feel like you're starting to go further back, boom, pull that back brake. It's going to drop the front end straight down. Hopefully, it should look a little something like this. Right, so we're going uphill, crouching down. I've actually put the saddle up a little bit, because lower down it means my knees are all crunched up. And stomp. Oh, there we go, look. If I loop out, that's what happens when you don't cover the back brake. Now time for manuals. Whoa, whoa. Hey, okay, so the manual. Essentially a wheelie without pedaling. So similar to the wheelie, a gradient to learn this on does help. However, people, we're not going up. Whoop. We're going down. So yeah, a slight downhill gradient is going to help. A grassy surface is ideal again, because if you do loop out, it's a softer landing. However, we've run out of grass, so we're here on a bit of gravel, but luckily I can just about manual, so I think we're going to be okay. And it's a similar process again, but without the pedaling. So let's have a look at what that process is. So unlike the wheelie, where we used a pedaling motion to lift up the front wheel, this is all about shifting body weight. Now, you may have seen online those sort of manual trainers, those things you slot your bike in and pull backwards to lift the front end up, and it stops you from going too many places. Those are a great thing to use, and even homemade ones are a really good idea as well. But essentially, what we're going to do is, instead of pedaling, we're going to shift our body weight down and back behind the rear axle to pick up the front end. So as we're riding along, imagine we're cruising down a nice gentle slope. We're going to shift our body weight down, crouching into the bike, and backwards to pick the front end up. So it should look something like this. So leaning against the wall is a great idea, because you can actually just slide against the wall. So as we're down, we're going to come down and back. And you see that front end just picks up almost naturally. Now, what you really need to do though, again, crucially, like the wheelie, is cover the back brake. So if you don't cover the back brake, that loop out is going to happen again. You'll just literally go, there we go. Okay, so once you've added a little bit of motion, same thing. Now what's happening here is I'm using a combo of pumping with my legs and covering the back brake. What that's doing is, by pumping with the legs, when I feel like the front end's gonna drop, I push with the legs, and it pushes the bike from underneath me and puts my weight further back. Now this is done in tandem with covering the back brake, ever such slight fine movements to then sort of keep it at that nice balance point. Here's an epic little montage of where the Manny can be mega. Time for a little front wheel action now. Then we've done a couple of back wheel manuals and wheelies. Now we're going to talk about the Endo. So the beauty of these is actually that you can do them almost anywhere. Now, a recommended surface is something solid. So we're just in the car park, just chilling. Solid surface, no gravel, because when we do get to locking up that front brake, if it's gravelly, it can tend to slide out from underneath you. And that is something you don't want. So how do we do that? How do we do the endo? Well, it's a combination of shifting your body weight forwards and using the front brake. So gradient can be your friend again. A slight downhill is ideal because it means shifting your body weight forwards is easier, meaning picking up the back wheel makes it much more easier to do. So as I'm rolling in, I'm standing up, I'm in a neutral riding position, so my butt's kind of above the saddle, legs are fairly straight but with a slight bend in them, arms are pretty outright and strong as well. What I'll do is I will jam the front brake on, shift my body weight forwards, but still keeping quite strong arms because I don't want to just fold into the front of the bike. Now what I'm going to do with my feet here, this is the special bit. So you can't just jam the front brake on and hope for the best because you'll go over the bars. So to control it, what you'll do is you'll actually push your feet, toes ever so slightly down and back into the pedals. That's going to grip the pedals and then you're almost going to scoop and it's going to bring that back end up or help bring it up. And then when you feel yourself getting to a good point, that's when you'll let the brake go and it'll drop back down. So the trick here is then as you are riding along, you're going to squat into the bike. So it's in and lunge forwards at the same time that you brake. That is going to shift all your body weight forwards. You might be thinking, Rich, what are you doing in a skate park? What one-wheeled action can we possibly learn here? The Stoppie, people. So going along on the front wheel. Sounds mind-boggling, right? But it's not, and actually can have some pretty useful applications. And the skate park is a perfect place to learn. Again, no loose ground, nice and controlled area. You're gonna get the same thing every single time. So the Stoppie is using the front brake and its modulation, and similar to an endo action, getting that weight forwards and then rolling on the front wheel. So how do you do a Stoppie? Well, here is exactly how. So activate it much like you would an endo. So squatting in, shifting that weight forward. This is the advanced part though, because instead of just grabbing a handful of front brake, you've got to modulate it. So you've got to use it, but only a little bit so that you don't go over the bars. So nice, easy run up here. We're gonna roll in. And as you get, it's like the crest, just where it starts to go over, that's where you're gonna squat just before, initiate that weight coming forwards, and using the front brake, roll down it on the front wheel, hopefully something like this. Now, be really careful on the front brake here because we're pointing down. If you're too vigorous, shifting that weight forwards, and you do just grab a handful of front brake, you're going big time OTB, and that is zero fun. So to finish the move then, once your front wheel reaches about the bottom of the slope, if you like, that's when you're gonna nicely and easily let off the front brake, the back end's gonna drop, you're gonna sail off into the sunset. A few things to look out for on this though. One, like I said, going over the bars. You don't wanna do that. Also, you might notice when you do start trying it, that the bike starts to step out to the left or the right. And that is because you've not come in nice and square. If you're leaning or your body weight's slightly off, it's gonna cause the back end to kick out. It's just kind of practice and get rid of that one. So the endo turn is essentially a combination of an endo and a Stoppie, but this time shifting your body weight around to change direction. So when you were practicing Stoppies, and you may have noticed that the back end of the bike was stepping out left or right, well, we're gonna do that, but intentionally. We want our bike to step out in the direction that we're gonna turn. So if we're gonna turn a hard right, like I'm gonna show you on this one, I want the back end of my bike to shift out to the left to then straighten me up out the turn. So how do I get that bike to shift around? Well, as I roll in, I'm gonna be looking into the turn. My upper body is gonna be rotated round to the turn. So shoulders are gonna be pointing down the trail. And as I initiate that endo, and then that Stoppie happens, I'm gonna use my hips to kick the back end of the bike out to the left. And then as I'm pointing in the right direction, I'll let go of the front brake and off I go down the trail. Okay, so here's what it should look like. We're gonna come in, rotate round, let go, and off I trot. Little trials maneuver for you now, the trusty back hop. Now, not really used in mountain biking too much, however, still a cool skill to learn because it's all about bike control, brake control, and I know that one Martin will be very pleased to see in the list of this video. The back hop then is a combination of skills. So we're gonna be using the wheelie skill to pedal and get the front end up, but also we're gonna be using that brake control of a manual and locking up that back brake as well. And then we're also gonna be shifting our body weight and keeping the pedals going as well. There's a whole host of different things that need going on in this, but a great way to learn it and initiate it, so actually get into that movement of rocking up on the back wheel, is doing an endo to begin with. So we wanna learn how to pick that front end up and sort of stay there. Now, if you're struggling to do that, an endo is the best way to initiate it. So we're gonna ride along, do our endo, and then with the back brake stuck on, pull on the back. Now you gotta make sure that the back brake is jammed on here. You want it fully locked so that when you pull backwards, that you're gonna stay up there. Now remember, if you feel like you're gonna loop out, you could let go of the brake to drop the front end down, or if you are gonna loop out, eject off the pedals and jump off the back of the bike. The second stage of this movement then is once you're up on the back wheel is keeping it there. So with the back wheel locked on, we're gonna do sort of the second half of the bunny hop stage. So if you don't know how to bunny hop, then that's gonna be a bit of a tricky one, but we've got tons of good videos. Just search it out and you'll learn all how to bunny hop there. And it's essentially squatting into the bike and making just the back wheel hop with that back brake, locked on. Hopefully should look a little something like this. Right, you've mastered it. You've got that back wheel hopping off the floor at least once, but you want to advance. You want to take it to the next level. You want to get a few hops in there. This is where it does get tricky, people, because a combination of pedal strokes, like little kick pedal strokes, and letting go and re-engaging the back brake is what needs to be done here. So once your back end is down and your front end's nice and firmly up, essentially to hop along, you will release the back brake, give it a little kick on the pedals. That's going to move you along, and then before you land back down, re-engage the back brake to stop you from just boop, looping back out. Have a little go. It's quite tricky and it does take quite a lot of time to learn it. I would recommend, again, skate park is kind of a nice controlled area to learn it, but grass is safer. Again, if you were to loop out, especially at this stage, it is going to be much softer to land on. So it'll be engage it. Once the front end's up, give it a little kick, let go of the brake at the same time. It will hop forwards, re-engage the back brake to keep it from looping out and just keep that hop in motion going. Let's have a go. Let's engage it with the hop, should we say? We're up, and kick, and kick, and kick. Whoa! There we go, some back wheel loving, some great skills that you can practice just using one wheel. Look, hopefully, with enough perseverance, you'll nail all of these, because I know you guys will out there. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. Let me know what other back wheel or front wheel or one wheel or two wheel skills you'd like to learn. Comments are down below. Look, I'm out of here. Thanks, everybody.